Hello, Saidu here. Now, in this video, we are going to see how to use Linux command line to check out the server or services that are running on the machine. Now, the recommended device or equipment to use is obviously CyberOps workstation, virtual machine, but you can use any Linux machine to do this. In fact, this is not specifically for the cyber operation or CCNA CyberOps certification preparation, but in Linux entirely, you can use this lab to check out the server or services running on that particular computer. Now, first of all, what is server? Now, servers are essentially programs written to provide a specific information upon request. Now, you do have client. Client are essentially programs or devices that reach out to server, place the request, and for the server to respond. So there are different client-server communication technology, but the one we are going to be seeing here is obviously an IP network. So once the client knows the IP address of the server, it is easier for the client to place requests and for the server to reply. Now I am on my Windows, which is my host machine. So I will go to my CyberOps workstation here in VM. So I'll now launch the command line. Then let me zoom it so that it be visible. So right here. Now on any machine, Linux or Windows, there are background processes that run. Some of them user don't even know that they are running, but they are running either started by the system operating system itself or by other programs that are on the computer. So now let me check. Let us view the processes. You can check the process or list all the programs or services that are running on that particular machine using this command. You can use ps-l. Now, for those that don't know how to use this command, is easy. You can easily check the man page for that. Let's say man ps, and you scroll down. You see the look at the option I use. I use the option elf, which is this. So it's just a way of saying that I want to view more or to get more information about the process. So that is it. You can always refer to the manual page to check for the documentation of the command. Now from here, you can, if you remember, the command I use is simple ps-elf, but this, despite the fact that it shows some processes that are running, but it didn't show everything. So make sure that you are checking or viewing all the processes running on that particular machine. You should use the sudo command, primarily because using the ps-elf command will not show you all the processes that are running on the computer. It will only show you the processes that are running for that current user. So if you use the sudo, just like a way of elevating the privilege level, so that it will show you everything that is going on that machine, including that of root a user. So now using the sudo command is asking me to enter the password. So now let me use CyberOps, and then here you see that everything is now in display. Now the process or the ps command can also be used to show the hierarchy of the processes, like ps using this option ejh. Now this will show you the programs in hierarchy. Now for the particular server that we want to check its existence or run process here is not visible. So we are trying to check a particular server, they call it nginx. So that particular server is not running now. I want to start it. I'll use this command sudo user spin nginx spin ng. So now this will start the process. So if I check this, now look at it. So we have something like this in hierarchical mode. So this is the parent and this is the child process. So what I want to do now is to check or to use another command called the netstart. Now the netstart command is a very good tool that help identify the network servers running on that particular machine. So netstart is a simple command. Just use the netstart and it will show you the now this everything on this machine that are running. But the problem with this is it displays bunch of information. So you can use options to filter down information that you need or that you want to use at that particular moment. Now for that, I'll use some option to display, for example, let's say sudo, so that it will show everything. Sudo netstart netstart.t u n a t. Now for those that are wondering why I'm using this option -t, now the -t there is there to specify that I want to view the TCP connection. The U there is view the UDP connections, and then the N is it doesn't have to resolve any IP address to the domain name. Simply just show the IP address there numerical form. So the A means it should show everything or all the connection, including the listening or the connected or any connection there, any connection status. Now the P there is just there to show process ID. Now all this information can be found in the man page, say netstart. So if you check the netstart, the man page for netstart, you see bunch of options. So you see v-w. So look at the one I use this option part of that. So look at this. It will show you everything. See, you have other options. Look at I think I use this one. P. This will show you the process ID. So use this -a, which shows all the listening and non-listening socket. So that is it. So you can check the man page to get the actual idea on how to use this command, any command for that matter in Linux. So now let me go ahead and use this sudo netstart use my option TUNAP. So you see now the information is a little bit more informational because you have filtered down to the processes that I want to check. Now let me add this window small so that it will just be displayed in one window. Now good. So this is what I was talking about. So here, because I use the T command, I'm able to see the TCP connection. The UDP is there, got it here. And then N numerical, this is where the N lies. So I have A. So the A is showing all the connection. Right now, the connection that I'm having now, all are listening. So the P is to show the process ID. Look at them here. You have 298 for Python 2.7. Now the one that I'm most interested in is the NGINX server, which is having the process ID of 587. So how do you read this kind of information? Now the first column is obviously the protocol. So this shows you the protocol. For example, let's take the NGINX as an example. So here it shows the protocol, and then here it shows the local IP, which is the IP that the server is listening to. So right now it's showing 0.0.0.0, which is like saying the server is listening on all IP addresses. And then you have TCP port, which is port 80, and then you have the remote address here. This is 0.0.0 also. So this 0.0.0 with the port of asterisk, just a way of saying that no remote device is currently utilizing the connection. So look at it is listening, and the process ID is 587, and it even give the program name or use a small name to identify that particular program, which in this case is NGINX. So in short, we can say that our NGINX server is listening on TCP port 80 and has a process ID of 587. So now, knowing the process ID, we can go further to check the process of this particular NGINX. Now using something like sudo, say ps-elf, and then we now use the grep to pipe it, say 587, pipe it down to that particular process ID. So now what you are seeing now is the result of this command, which is specifically for NGINX server only, because I pipe it through the process ID. So now how would you read this? Process ID. So now how would you read this? Now you can read this saying that the first process is owned by a user root. So here is simply saying that the process is being started by another process with process ID of 1. Here is a port which is listening to, which is port 80 in this case, and this is the time that it happens. So it happens at this date and this time. So it's been started using this command user slash or usr slash libs slash systemd, and look at the full command here, or the full path. So the second line shows a process with process ID of 587 and started by the user root. So here we have another user HTTP. So this user is, so when NGINX started another process, it usually named the user HTTP. So it's normal, it runs itself for every client that connect to port 80. So that is why you see the user instead of root or analyst, you see HTTP. So it starts this date, the date and time. And so the last one is the analyst user, which is having the test of 36 started by this process 5:45, and then at this date in time, so it's right now is even showing that the grave 587. Now the grave 587 was used to filter the process output. If you remember when we use this command here, right here. So we use this the grave 587 to filter the APS output. So that is why it is still showing there. So the next part of this lab is to use the telnet application. So telnet is a simple remote shell application. It's not that secured. Many professionals don't use telnet specifically to log in into their remote server or their remote device. It's been considered insecure. Why? Because it sends its data in a plain text. So advisably, whenever a user to a remote device or server, advisably should use SSH instead of telnet. Telnet is useful in testing or gathering information about TCP services. Now, for some reason, if a user wants to access its device remotely, strongly recommended that he or she should use the SSH instead of telnet. Now, telnet is a protocol that operates on port 23 using the TCP by default. Now, the telnet client, however, allows for different port to be specified. So in the first part, we were able to see how to start this NGINX, and we even use some grep using the process ID to pipe it into just the process specifically for NGINX. And here we want to check more information. Now, the scenario they give out in the lab manual is that despite the fact that we know that NGINX is a light web server, but the whole idea is like the example, the scenario they give out in the lab manual is how would an analyst be sure of that the NGINX is actually the web server. There are some a situation or scenario where the attacker might change the name of a malware or a virus to NGINX. So if, for example, you are just relying on the information because you see NGINX and you think you start saying or you be assuming that NGINX is just a light web server, but there are actually situations where the attacker, because he or she knows that you know that NGINX is a web, can actually change the name, the virus or the malware name to NGINX so that it will trick you to be assuming that it is a web server, not a virus. So the way to check out for this situation is quite easy. Now we can just use the telnet command or telnet, say telnet, use this loopback IP address, say 127.0.0.1, then enter the port. Now entering this telnet 127.0.0.1, then specify the port will result this saying that it is trying to reach 127.0.0.1. Now once you see this, for you to test out things, is just to enter any character. Any character will suffice. So entering any character from your keyboard and then hit enter will return this output for you. So here right now what you are seeing is the information about the Nginx server. So had it been that this is not a real Nginx server, it will return something different. But here we are able to see that the Nginx server is of version 1.12.2. Look at the date, look at the connection type, look at the HTTP version itself. So we can be rest assured that the Nginx running on our Linux machine now is the actual web server. So it is only listening to the HTTP protocol. Let's recap. Now for this lab, we saw how to use the PS or the process command, which shows all the processes running on your Linux machine. And then we even saw how to use some of the options of PS in order to filter or to view the required or your desired. But we saw how to use the nested with other options. So basically what nested does is try to display all the connections on the particular machine. And then finally we saw how to use telnet in order to gather information about a particular server. For example, we tried out telnet to confirm if our Nginx server running our machine is actually a web server, not a virus. So that is the end of this lab. I hope you learned something from it, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks.